Hello, outlets, and welcome to another episode of Shameless Plugs.
Hi!
Hi.
Hello.
As always, I am J.A. George. I'm joined by my co-host, who I'll let introduce herself.
Samantha the Writer.
Yes. It's a special episode.
It is. There's a reason that it's a really special episode, but we also haven't done the weather in a little bit, and so I'm going to insert the weather real quick. Okay. It is gorgeous here in Cincinnati. That's all I wanted to say.
You know that the way you said that, I'm going to do the weather. You know I'm thinking of Welcome to Night Vale. I'm thinking of Welcome to Night Vale.
I know you are, yeah. I mean,
anyway.
I just had to get that in there, because that's part of the reason that I'm really excited right now.
The weather is gorgeous.
The weather is gorgeous.
It's true.
But there's another reason that I'm excited, and I'm actually probably more excited about this other reason.
I hope you're more excited about this other reason.
I am, yeah.
This is a first.
This is a first.
We have a special guest.
We do.
Which you could probably guess if you're a regular listener. We do have a special guest today, and it's our first international guest, which I'm excited about. And I'm doubly excited because our international guest lives in one of my 3 favorite cities on the entire planet, Toronto. So if we have other people listening from Toronto, know that Toronto, for me, your city, ranks along with Chicago and Cincinnati as one of my 3 favorite cities. Yay! So,
yay!
Go Toronto!
Go Toronto!
And our guest...
Are you a fan of their hockey team?
Unfortunately. They're not my favorite hockey team, but I really like them. I like them because I'm loyal to, things that I'm loyal to, but
that's fine.
It's not easy being a fan of them.
No, it's not.
Anyway, I have a jersey.
Do you really?
I do.
Nice.
I have, of course, my beloved Rangers. I have a Rangers jersey. Old Rangers jersey. Yeah, the best one.
Obviously.
I have, of course, Blackhawks.
Yeah, well, yeah. Mm-hmm.
I have some minor league, like Chicago Wolves jersey, and
Cyclones?
I don't have Cyclones, actually, which irritates me, because I should have Cyclones.
You should.
I have, Red Wings. Or not Red Wings. Oh my god! Oh my god! Oh my god! I meant New Jersey Devils, not Red Wings. Oh my god! I need to just...
I don't know.
I hate the Red Wings. I hate the Red Wings.
Thank you. Now we're going to isolate people.
I don't hate Detroit. I hate the Red Wings. They're 2 different things. I'm a Blackhawks fan. How can I root for the Red Wings? For God's sake. And Toronto.
We're way off course.
We're way off course. Let's get back to our guests who we're alienating right now.
Sorry.
Poulomi Sanyal is our guest, who we are very excited to have on the show. So thank you for joining us today.
Hello, everyone. Hi. Thanks for having me on the show. I really, really appreciate it, you guys, and I'm totally excited. I mean, you guys look really excited, and excitement is contagious, right? So,
yeah. I'll have you know,
that you're excited about my team makes me feel really special. So, thanks for having me.
And I'll have you know that I'm wearing a special hat today just because you're on the episode.
Oh man,
I am wearing a special hat.
Are you?
I am, because part of the reason why we started talking on Twitter is because we were both doing, like, pitch contests, and we had both drawn comparisons to X-Men. I am wearing my Xavier School for Gifted Youngsters hat right now in honor of our X-Men connection.
That is so cool.
Yep.
That is, yeah, I do remember that. That's why we that's how, we make friendships on Twitter. Like, we see something that both of us like, and, that instant, connection happens, and I'm so glad we connected, because, this is how you make connections with people that think like you and have the same type of interest. It's great.
And it can be this, not that loving X-Men is stupid, but the stupidest little thing that makes you meet somebody and then start having conversations, and then you find out you got things in common and you like them and they're a good person, like our guest today. Yay!
I mean, I think you guys met over something kind of cool.
I think so too. It was. Well, I mean, obviously there was something deeper there with writing and the fact that...
I'm just saying, like, that's really cool. We met over salad.
Tea and salad.
Yeah. So that's how Shameless Plugs came to be.
Yeah, if it weren't for tea and salad, there would be no Shameless Plugs.
It's true. Mm-hmm.
I can't remember if we've told that story, but now's not the time.
But now's not the time.
We'll tell it
you
another
can check
time.
out our website, shamelesspugspodcast.com, to learn more.
Yes. So, moving on to our guest.
Woo!
Now, I think this is going to be a really interesting episode because of the things that I already know about Poulomi. and the conversations that we have had on Twitter, her background, and how it kind of informs what she writes. So, Poulomi, I'm just going to ask you right off the bat, tell us a little bit about your writing, what you like to write, and why, and where that kind of comes from.
Sure, absolutely. I'd love to talk to you about that. Yeah, I'm a very weird writer, to be honest. Weird in the sense that, there's a lot of notion out there that you write a genre, you stick to that genre, you kind of build your platform around that. I've never, that's not how I see my writing. I've never seen my writing like that. I've written from a place of, my personal interest, things that motivate me. I write what I like to read, and a lot of the writing is motivated by my personal interest. So going back to the question of what I write, I like to read, personally, I like to read a lot of contemporary fiction, a lot of realistic, stories, thrillers, science fiction, which is science-based, historic fiction, things that are, I come from a science kind of background, fact-based background. I like stories. I mean, it's not like I don't enjoy things that are fantasy. I'm a big Harry Potter fan, so I love fantasy too, but my writing style is inspired by a lot of fact-based things. I'm information sponge. I'm always trying to find out new things. I'm curious about history and languages. So my first book was inspired by my own life, and which has been very interesting and tumultuous. It's not a memoir. It's not my biography or anything like that. It's not an autobiography. It is a fictional piece, but a lot of the incidents are reminiscent of things that have either happened to me or to people that I've been close to in my life, in my immediate circles. So it's definitely inspired by my journey.
You said that you write the things that you like to read, and I think that's a really good insight, because we get, a lot of people that we bring on the show write in a certain genre, or they, write this or they write that, and I write it because they like to write that. But I don't think we've had someone come on yet and say, I write what I like to read.
Yeah.
And I'm the same way. I write, the way that I approach my writing a lot of times is I read something else and I go, oh, I like that. Could I do that?
Yeah.
And so I think that that's great that that's where your perspective is.
I think that's really cool hearing that from both of you, because it's so different from how I look at my writing. Mm-hmm. Like, I love true crime stuff. Mm-hmm. I have no interest whatsoever in writing true crime or even writing a fictionalized thriller. So that's really cool to hear, that completely different perspective from my own. Now, you mentioned your... sorry?
Very personal, right? It depends on the person. And then, I completely get where you're coming from with that, too. Like, you were inspired by something. Just because you're inspired by it doesn't mean that you want to do the same thing. Yeah. But for me, personally, it was the other way around, actually. I read the type of things that I like to write, and vice versa. But I'm pretty open-minded in terms of a reader. Like, I read almost everything if it's good. So it's not like I won't read a certain genre. That's not what I don't do that. But I have a preference in terms of what I enjoy.
Yeah, right. I have to say, I'm glad that you don't write true crime, though.
I'm glad I don't as well. But
why is that?
Things go off the rails really fast.
Well,
if you're
they certainly
you're
could.
like, I'm going to write this true crime. I need inspiration.
Yeah. Yes. We do not need John the Ripper running around Cincinnati.
Nope, we don't. No.
So before we get to the next serious question, I got to ask something based on something else you said there. Which house are you? I mean, Harry Potter, I got to know.
I'm definitely Gryffindor. I mean, I'm all about the, chivalry and the courage. I mean, I think that's my defining characteristic more than anything else. Mm-hmm. So, I'm definitely Gryffindor. I see danger and I pounce on it.
Nice.
Hey, Poulomi, ask Jag what house he is.
I'm
a Ravenpuff. I am a raven puff, okay? In spite of what the Sorting Hat said...
actually come up with that, you took the test, or is it something that you think based on your assessment?
The Sorting Hat is not always right. It claims I'm a Hufflepuff, but I am totally a raven puff, so whatever.
The Sorting Hat isn't right. You can influence it, right? You can do what you want to be. You have to just tell the hat, right?
Well, yeah. I mean, like, it gave Harry a choice between Gryffindor and Slytherin, okay? And let him have some input, so...
I know.
So...
I would have preferred him to be in Slytherin, though. I mean, to be honest, if you ask me. If I rewrote Harry Potter, that's what I would do.
I like it.
I want to know where that story would go.
Right away.
Oh, Harry is a Slytherin?
Harry is a Slytherin. Does he take down Slytherin from within? Does he give in to the dark side and become just like Voldemort? Which way does it go?
That would be great. It would be like Anakin Skywalker.
Yeah. Yeah. Exactly.
Yeah. And then it's a retelling of Star Wars with magic.
We need to get JK on the phone.
You
know how Orson Scott
Card...
Card...
My dream date is a date with JK. You know, it can be simple. We can just have, like, lunch and chat or something.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay,
if Orson Scott Card can do Ender's Game and then do Ender's Shadow and tell the story from Bean's perspective, why can't JK just do, the alternate reality version where the Sorting Hat put him in Slytherin?
No, another thing is very interesting to admit here. One of the things that inspired me, amongst others, that inspired me to start writing, like, full-time, or, in terms of writing stories and novels, is, reading a lot of Harry Potter fan fiction. I was doing a lot of that a couple of years ago when I was really depressed, and Harry Potter usually always lifts my mood. So after I reread the actual novels like 500,000 times, then I ran out of options, and then I started reading fan fiction. And I didn't think I'd enjoy Harry Potter fan fiction because, a lot of it is not canon, and that's fine. But when I started reading it, some of the stories there were really, really good, and they did a lot of to the plot that I think maybe Jacob should have done.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Nice. Harry Potter had a very positive effect on my wife, too. When she was pregnant, that was the one thing that, no matter how nauseous she was or anything else, watching the Harry Potter movies, that was the one thing that made her feel better. So.
Nice.
It does good things for people.
And that's kind of something I try to do with my work as well. Not in my first book so much. It's kind of based on my life. So whatever inspiration you can get from that is totally up to you. But the second one is a lot more. It has an inspirational theme. And basically I'm trying, my goal is to give a message of hope at the end of the day, because I really, and that's where it, the argument about writing something that you like to read comes from. I mean, that's where, basically I derive my inspiration from Harry Potter. It inspired me in my dark days, and I want to be able to do the same to the people who read my Thought Warrior series, so...
You're making Samantha very happy on this side of the conversation. You're making me very happy too, but she's expressing it outwardly right now. She's smiling and rocking back and forth, and
it's just so warm. Like it's such a great, I don't know, that's such a great approach to things. Is to just be like, at the end of the day, I just want people to be happy and hopeful. I love it.
I do too.
Aww.
I mean, not like I don't enjoy things that are. There's a lot of sadness in life. There's very good literature out there that is very touching, very sad. And I've read a lot of, obviously some of them are my favorites that write really sad, heart-rending stories. And you need to read those too, because then you see what all the sadness that's out there. But because in my own personal journey, I found the Harry Potter series to be a crutch. It lifted me out of my depression. It did great things for me. That's how I got inspired, and that's what I want to give back to the reading community, to the writing community.
I want to give you a hug.
I was going to say, I think Samantha has a writer crush on you right now, so...
You have no idea how many writers on Twitter I have a writer crush on. Almost all of them. Everyone I follow, actually, they're all awesome.
Oh, I love it.
I crush on them all the time. I'm going to go fussy over them. Like, oh my God. They're so talented, all of these people. It's just like, it blows my mind.
Okay. I'm just sitting back.
No, go for it. You had a question.
So you mentioned your first book, and I know what you're referring to. But could you give our listeners a little bit more about the book and how it's connected to your experiences?
Sure. Yeah, so the first book, Poulomi Confounded, it's stories of immigrant women. It's set in Canada because, I'm based out of here. And it's about a women's journey. It's not actually, it's hard to put in the genre. It's not really a romance. There are elements of romance, but it's more about, about women's lives seen in a different light. It's more like I read a lot of stories where, female characters, if it's a romance or even if it isn't, a lot of the times it's a lot of the conventional gender roles where, women are looking for a family and looking up to a guy, they see someone and they start getting involved, getting upset. Their whole life is determined by that, and things like that. But I see a lot of women. I've known personally a lot of women who have other aspects to their lives other than romance. I mean, there is romance, but sometimes there's accidental romance, in pursuit of other things, like in pursuit of their careers when they go out into the world and start pursuing really aggressive professions, which are very competitive, very I used to work, I'm an engineer, but I used to work in technical sales, engineering sales, which is very, very, unfortunately so, very, very male-dominated sphere. Mm-hmm. Every company I've worked for, I've been the only woman in their team, like in North America sometimes, or at least in Canada in most cases. So I've always worked with a bunch of men, and I'm in very demanding competitive roles. So it's kind of the story of Poulomi Confounded, it reflects some of these aspects of my life, and there are women who live these kind of lives, who are alone, who don't have a family, or who have ventured to do things that were different from what was expected of them by the social. I mean, I come from a Indian background. I was born in India, Indian parents, and I come from a background where certain things are expected of women. That you are at a certain age. You can go to university, you can graduate, everything, that's great, but then career is not your first focus. Your first focus in life is you find a partner by the time you're in your mid-20s. Sometimes it's arranged. Your parents will find someone for you. You get married, and that's the goal of your life. Even now, when I go back home, people want to know what my husband does rather than what does she do or what is she doing. All my accomplishments, everything that I've done, it doesn't mean anything to that society. The only thing that matters is the fact that I'm not married, right? Mm-hmm. Yeah. And so, yeah. So that's kind of why I wrote these stories, because I think a lot of the Indian women who are in India, I think they should read stories like this, inspired by real life, where they will know that the world is not like that. The world is not... it does not revolve around you getting married at a certain age and being a homemaker. You can have your life. You can go out. You can search for your dreams. You can, fall in love with people that are not within your community. You can explore. You can do things. And in those situations, there are obstacles and there are friendships. There's romances, and some of them fail. But at the end of the day, there's people still survive, and that's life, right?
Mm-hmm. Yep. Mm-hmm.
Hello.
Hi. Yeah. Sorry, we were just we were just taking everything in that you're saying. Like, it's just I'm sitting here trying to figure out when I can get a hold of your book. That's what I'm sitting here thinking about.
As a matter of fact, you can get a hold of it right now.
That's so sweet of you. Thank you. But yeah, I mean, I don't know. I'm probably overselling it right now. It's not like it, but...
No, it's great. Like, that's awesome. I mean, and I love our guests. I love our show, and I love our fan base, but we don't get very many people on here who write in the real world. And I think that's awesome, and that's where my writing goes a lot of times. I read a lot of science fiction and I read a lot of fantasy, but I also write a lot about my life and where it took me and the things that I've been through, and I twist it and fictionalize it and everything, but it's all coming from that same place. So it's nice to chat with you.
But there's people that do you have something published out there? Because now I'm curious. I want to read your work too.
Well, I'm working on it. I'm querying right now. So, oh, I'm sorry. Did you want
Showing
to
you. Well, keep me posted because this really intrigues me. This is, I said, I read what I write.
Yeah.
I mean, I read other things too.
I will. Yeah, and like I said, I need to figure out where I can get a hold of your book because I really want to read it.
Well, there are going to be links on Shameless Plug Podcast.
It's on Amazon. It's also in the indie book box, which I don't know if you're aware of or not. It's something that was started by William Eicher. He's an indie author as well. He's on Twitter. I don't know if you guys follow him, but yeah. So my book is there in the indie box. It's also on Amazon, of course, and it's in some bookstores in India, and possibly it will be in Chapters Indigo, which is the biggest bookstore here in Canada. It should be there by this fall. So
that's cool.
That's really cool.
Oh my gosh. So are you gonna I always dreamed of what it would be like to walk into a bookstore and see my book. Do you know what you're gonna do? Are you gonna go in there and
I can totally relate to that. I'm not there yet. I mean, I have it in some stores in India, but to have it in a mainstream store that's all over the world, and that's my dream too. So I can totally get it, and I don't know if I'll get there, but you keep working towards it, right?
Yeah, right. I mean, you have to go in and just stare at it and just be like, oh my gosh, there it is. That's me.
I plan to just set up a lawn chair right next to the display and be like, me.
It's true.
Mine.
It's a moving experience.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Oh my gosh.
We've had episodes where I've completely gelled with the other writer, and now I know what you were feeling all of those times, in spite of the fact that I met her first and introduced you. Yep.
Yeah.
We've got a whole symbiosis thing going on right now.
We do. Yeah. Mm-hmm. I'm sorry. I'm going to take her from you.
Yep, please. I took Mark Dubovec from you,
this is true. Right, yes, this is very true. You guys are running off to have your own podcast.
Yeah,
so.
pretty much. So.
Oh, that's awesome.
So, one of the things that I think is so cool about your work, and one of the reasons why I wanted to have you on the show, is because the other title you've got out there is so completely different from Color Me Confounded. And I think that's awesome.
But I'm really weird in terms of, I don't think that you're, a writer or an author, creator should be defined by a genre, because someone who can write might as well be able to write in multiple genres and be able to do justice to each of them. And I don't think that these restrictions, they're not real restrictions. It's not like they're laws, but it's kind of like a restriction that they're based on the tradition of publishing, the world out there. But I don't think they should exist. These boundaries shouldn't exist. People should be able to write whatever they feel comfortable writing.
Yeah, I agree.
Completely agree.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So tell us though about the other series.
Another book, yes, series, and hopefully it'll be a series. That's the goal.
Yes.
And yeah, it is a completely different genre, but then again, it doesn't really fit slam dunk into a particular genre. It's kind of like a hybrid genre, and I've seen something that really that I feel is the surprising characteristic of literature, especially in North America or in Europe, even in the Western world. I've seen this trend, and that is whenever people think science fiction, it's a lot of space opera. It's a lot of drug testing things, medical experimentation, and these kind of science fiction is, I guess, that's how the industry works. When one of those titles become a bestseller, and they earn, they get all the shows, and they win a Hollywood contract, and every publisher wants to put out something in a in vain because people are interested in that. So when I look at science fiction, a lot of people get confused, and they're thinking a different kind of science fiction probably, but my book is very weird in that sense. It's kind of a hybrid, and it's also like you were talking about it, fact-based writing, Samantha. I mean, if you like that, I mean, Star Warriors is a lot, in all of science fiction, a lot of it is fact-based. A lot of the information that's in there is based on actual facts, actual archaeological facts. It has a lot of ancient history, so it's a story about a mutant race, X-Men, obviously. That concept is there. It's about a mutant race when you're undergone a mutation, and it's about them discovering things about the current world and how and what is going on in terms of in terms of why is there so much violence in this world right now? Why is there so much death and destruction? And all of these issues come into light in this book, where this mutant race is stuck in a situation where they are born to a very ancient, they're born to an ancient prophecy, and that leads them to seek their roots, to find out what these ancient prophecies mean. What do these ancient civilizations, what did they know that we don't know? And they go on this discovery journey to find out about their own past, and they unravel this whole connected ecosystem of information from different cultures, and not just one culture, from the ancient Egyptians, from the Mayans, from the Indian civilizations. They find these myths that are thousands of years old, and they're somehow interconnected, and their mind is boggled by all of this information, and they piece it together. It's kind of like a treasure hunt or mystery solving or puzzle solving kind of experiment, where they piece together all this information that they find out, and they make some startling discoveries about themselves and about the state of the world, and they realize that they're living in an age that is kind of a dark age, and it might pass, and they have a role to play in making that dark age pass. They would have to, contribute. They would have to fight and to make some changes, and so they use these tools to try to beat the evil forces out there, and try to use the information behind where the ancients to decipher it and tap into their own self and into their own powers. So it's not like they have any superpowers. Although I say X-Men, it's a lot of real people, and the powers they have, I kind of scientifically explain why it is so, why are they born that way, and the powers they have are some things that, it can even be acquired. So there's a lot of science in there, scientific explanations for why things are happening the way they're happening. Some of the ancient predictions that are mentioned there, they're also explained scientifically. So it's that kind of a story where there's a quest to stop a dark power from destroying everything that we hold dear, to just from becoming megalomaniacs and things like that. And they are doing that by trying to connect with ancient wisdom and trying to become more enlightened than a lot of people are in modern times.
So can I just say that I want you to try to sell my book too, because the way that you talk about your work is incredible. Yeah. Can I just give you the synopsis and be like, I'm not going to tell you about my book. I've got someone who can do it a lot better.
I would love to. I would love to. If you find out about your book, I not just my work, I love to promote the works of people that my other writer friends and contacts. And if you need me to talk about your book, just let me know. I would love to do it. I used to talk for a living. I used to get paid high dollar for it. So.
Oh, yeah. Wow. Nice. That's awesome. Man.
You're making business connections during this conversation, everything.
Yeah. She's showing us up, Jag. She's showing us up here.
I'm well aware. But
all this professional talking and stuff, and we have our little basement studio.
Yes. I got an X-Men hat.
That's awesome. That's incredible.
I was struck by two things. Yeah. Two things in particular about this story that you're telling. I was struck by several things, but there were two questions that popped out in my mind there. This is a series, or it's hopefully going to become a series, but it sounds like you've got two really cool things going on there. You are building a world, but you're also telling a particular story within that world.
Yeah.
So I guess my question for you would be, in terms of the growth or the direction of this series, where do you think it's going? Is it more about building this world? Is it more about telling this particular story? How are you envisioning this?
I think it's more about telling the particular story. The world building, the world is very comparable to the contemporary world. So it's not a near future or apocalyptic universe. It's the world building is of course there, but like I said, it is science fiction. It is, you can say, it's very hard to categorize this book. We can call it urban fantasy, I guess. I don't know, maybe, but yeah, I mean. So it's more about telling that story. The world building will obviously be there in that, and of course. Another important factor in the book would be the growth of the characters, the character arcs. I'm hoping that I've been able to achieve some of the character arc in the first book already, but it's a series, so there's a lot of the backstory of the characters, and so that's one of the things that I really want to focus on with the sequels, to kind of show where the characters there's a lot of characters, and it's a multi-POV kind of manuscript. It's my book, so there's lots of POV characters, which is also, again, very weird style of writing. So it's not told from the protagonist's point of view, but there's several protagonists, actually. There's one primary protagonist, but there are several very strong secondary characters, and sometimes the story is told through their eyes. It's an alternating kind of a viewpoint. Mm-hmm. So
nice. I like that. So
what I'm trying to say is, yeah. So, sorry?
I'm sorry. I said I like that multiple point of view because personally I can't write one point of view character. I can't do it. I have never been able to tell a story other than short pieces.
Yeah,
I mean, anything that's novel length, I can't write from one character's point of view. I cannot do it. So I love it.
I mean, that's one style, but then the type of story I'm trying to tell, you need to really be able to see it from different angles. You can't just see it from the protagonist's eye, because that would be, an unreliable narrator, like a very colored perception of the world and also the story of the facts that are being presented. So it makes sense, especially for my book, to kind of have multiple POVs of almost equally strong characters, everybody looking at the plot from basically from a different angle, right? And so part of the goal for the future books is to kind of show more of the backstory, kind of work on the character arc for each of these characters that I've presented, especially the few primary ones. And another interesting thing that I wanted to do with this book, well, interesting, I don't know if it's interesting to you, it was interesting to me, because it is something, it's a pet peeve of mine. I envision a world where there would be no cultural barriers, everybody comes together, and, everybody learns from each other's past and their heritage and their backgrounds, and they come together and we unite as a unified, force in humanity, and we fight things that are morally wrong and that are evil, that are causing death and destruction and corruption and pollution in society. So I try to bring a little bit of that into the series, because most of my characters come from, all my characters are basically coming from different cultural backgrounds. My protagonist is an African American woman. I have, and the American characters who are strong characters. I have British characters, I have German characters, I have Mexican characters, Indian characters. All of them have very important roles, and basically everybody brings a piece of their culture, a piece of their history into the plot, and all of that helps. All of that can be utilized and has been utilized by the characters to solve the global problem that exists in this fictional world, basically.
That's awesome.
I was just waiting because I could see the expression on Samantha's face, so.
No, that's, yeah. I mean, we've both done a lot of work that, to kind of bridge cultural barriers and to, make sure that people feel included in their workplace and everything. So you kind of just hit on something that's important to both of us.
Yeah,
so
agreed.
That's awesome.
It's a weird book, I told you. I mean, some people are going to like it, some people are probably not going to like it. I mean, but it's, like I said, I wrote what I wanted to read, and I really, wanted to read something like this, and I felt, and I when I read it, I feel uplifted, which I wanted to do, and maybe some of my readers will feel the same way, and they'll feel uplifted too. They'll feel like there's hope, and there's, in times of division and conflict, there's still people who want unity and who want to build a stronger world together, something like that. So it's not like there's a big message. It's not. I don't like fictional work that is very didactic. I don't like to read stuff like that, because if you tell me, oh, you do this or you do that, I'm going to put the book down. I'm like, okay, don't tell me what to do.
Agreed.
But,
I mean, sometimes it's more powerful when that's just the way it is. It's like, it's just that way. This is my world. This is how it works. And that's what it is, and it becomes just normal. It just is. And I think
yes, that's how it is. And they see that fictional world, they see that concept working there. If the readers see that, they'll think, okay, this could work in our world. It's a lot of sense, right?
Yeah, I think so, for sure.
Agreed.
Cool. So, we have come to, I like to call it like an epic part of our show. Our 3 questions.
Yes.
We ask the same 3 questions of all of our guests when they come on. So we will start with the first one that just causes conflict here. I mean, like, the cannons come out, we're on opposite sides of the basement studio throwing things at each other. So we'll see which team that you are going to land on here.
Although I've noticed that with more of our guests,
I know,
they're giving really similar answers, and we're the ones who are disagreeing more. But anyway.
I know. We try not to polarize things here, but this one, for whatever reason, we're very opposite.
Yeah, I'm worried.
All right, here it comes.
All right, let's hear it.
Are you a plotter or a pantser?
Okay. I would say definitely a pantser. Yeah, not a plotter. No, I don't plan anything in my life. I'm very,
Yeah, I mean, that's the only way to be. So
it's really not the only way to be, but I kind of had a feeling that was going to be the answer, given how the rest of this conversation has gone. But...
No, that's awesome. Yeah, I mean, I have nothing else.
So what do you usually get? I mean, is it more polarized towards plotter, or am I in the middle?
People usually say they're both.
They're both, yeah.
Whereas, even though I don't like your answer, I appreciate that you took a stand, that you picked a side. So.
Yeah, I like to be honest about what I am, and that's what I am. And I wish I was more organized. I wish I was a plotter, and I could, and I see some of my writer friends, they're doing a lot of it. It's brilliant. Like, I want to learn from them, but it's just something that I don't have the patience for.
I get it.
That's how I live my life. Day to day, like I just, I do things on a whim, and I plot. I mean, it's not like I don't plot. I plot in my head. It's not very methodical. I dream about things. I kind of fantasize. I talk to myself, and and my neighbors, they're not happy about it, but I still do it, and. I stand in my balcony and I talk to myself. I have conversations with myself, That's how lonely I am. That's okay. I mean, you don't have to feel bad for me or anything. But
some of my
that's how I plot, actually.
Any polarization with that question is just between me and Samantha.
It is, yeah.
She's a dyed-in-the-wool pantser, and I'm a total plotter.
Yeah,
so.
it is. It's like one of the only things that we don't agree on a lot of times. So
we see things really similar in a lot of ways.
The way we approach writing is
completely different.
Very opposite.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
I already see a lot of similarities with Samantha here. I mean, I think we're going to enjoy each other's work.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, like I said.
I know, I'm not saying that I don't enjoy yours. I mean, opposites do attract, right? That's also, that's what they say.
We'll always have X-Men, okay? We'll always have X-Men. So.
I mean, thank you for introducing us.
I'm sure there's tons of other things, too, and that we couldn't cover here, so. But let's start with
Yes.
All right. Question number 2. Would you want to go for it?
We tend to get our best ideas at inopportune times. In the shower, in the car, in the middle of meetings.
Yes.
When or where do you get your best ideas?
I think I'm gonna agree with you with that. I mean, showers is a great one, and I'm all about the long showers. I mean, it's not because people think that I'm, really clean or something. I mean, I'm clean, but I'm just saying that it's. That's what I do in there. When I'm in the shower and so relaxed, and that's when I get. And it's not just related to my writing. I mean, always when I was in research, I was doing a PhD in engineering, and every time I hit a roadblock, and I hit the shower, and I was there, and I get these great ideas. And when you're in the shower and you get an idea, that's still an okay place to get an idea, because you have to come back out and write it down, or But if, like you said, in a opportune moment, if you're right about to go to bed and really tired and you get that idea, and the next morning after you wake up you've completely forgotten what it was. Those are horrible. But that's happened. I mean, that's happened to me too. So yeah, that's kind of stuff. But then again, that's how our brain works, right? When you're trying to focus on something, you cannot think about it, but you're thinking about something completely different, and suddenly you have that eureka moment.
Oh yeah. I have a new one, by the way.
What's your new one?
This has happened to me a couple of times, and I'll be interested to see if this has ever happened to you. So I've said on the podcast a couple of times, and we've had some noise in the background of my itty bitty. I had a baby in January. When I'm feeding her, I'll be sitting there, and it'll just, my brain will just be going, but I've got, her in one hand and her bottle in the other hand, and I'm like, okay, just keep thinking about it.
Yeah.
No, don't spit. Just keep thinking about it. No. Okay, you're going to get as soon as she's done eating, you can write it down, but then usually, something else happens, and then something else happens, and then something else happens. So, I don't know, when your kids were younger.
Well, yes, and it still happens today. My kids are older now, 8 and 5, although by the time this episode airs, my son will be 6.
Yeah,
but,
right?
It'll happen when I'm in the middle of doing something with them, or when I'm out with them. And, I'm not going to be an absentee parent who all of a sudden jumps on his phone to write a memo or whatever. So,
right.
I take my kids' safety very seriously.
I have a little notebook and a pen, so even if you're kids or whatever, just have it handy, just in case, these things happen, right?
Yeah, I do notes on my phone.
And of course, learning shorthand helps. I don't know shorthand.
Oh,
yeah,
that's a good idea.
Yeah.
That's a new one for me. It's happened 2 or 3 times, and I'm like, oh.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, it happened. It's not going to go away.
Oh.
Just warning you now, it's not going to go away.
Thank you.
I'm here to help.
Appreciate it.
I'm here to help, so.
Yeah, always. Always here to help. So that brings us to our third question. We are Shameless Plugs Podcast. We are the best podcast out there with the best hosts out there.
And the best guests.
So we always like to give our guests the opportunity to plug whatever they want to plug, whatever they want to tell our listeners about, whatever they want to tell us about.
It could be your favorite restaurant.
Anything.
Anything you want to plug.
Yep. So... go for it. You have the floor.
I already spoke about my books that are out there. I don't want to talk about them anymore because I know that, I've spoken enough about it. I do have I'm probably going to have an audio book come out for my Thought Warrior series soon. But that, people who follow me on Twitter will have news of that, of course. The other thing I did I think I briefly mentioned it before, wanted to talk about, I think it's the new thing that writer William Eicher, he's kind of started up the indie book box. I think that is something that people who are listening to the listeners of this podcast, they really benefit from knowing. It's an excellent, it's an amazing endeavor that he started just recently, and where he basically, I don't know, did you hear about it at all? Or?
I've heard about it, but I know nothing, I'll be honest.
Yeah, it was like that too. It's very new, actually. So his messages is going out, and so what he's doing is he's been an indie author himself for many years now, and he's also got a marketing background, And so what he wants to do is help other indie authors. It's hard for indies to get bookstore positioning, to be, out in front of the readers, right? So to get your message out there. So what he's doing is he's got this subscription program where people who are avid readers, they can sign up for a monthly subscription for either one book or 3 books, and they come in the preferred paperback format. So it's not an e-book. People who like to read real books, they can get, and it comes with also a bunch of like swag stuff, like bookmarks, and so it's very cool. And if you subscribe to that, you can get every month. You can cancel anytime. Obviously, I don't know all the details. I don't want to be speaking on behalf of the Thursday. They have a website, and people can visit that. But you can find out all the terms. But so you subscribe for that, and you get these awesome books that are selected by the Indie Book Box team. And my book is also, my first book is in that box. There's several other authors that are also very brilliant authors that I follow, and probably you follow as well on Twitter. Their boxes are there. And of course, another way around also works. If you have a book that you think deserves that kind, not deserves, but that is not getting the reach that you would like to give it, and it's something that you would like Indie Book Box to consider to offer in their subscription program. So you can also write to them and send them a copy of the book, and they'll look at it, and if they like the book, then they're going to include it. So basically, and then the ones that get included, Indie Book Box will buy those books right off of the author. So that's pretty cool. I think they buy it, so you can also keep a little bit of profit, and so it's a win-win for the authors whose books are being positioned. It's a win-win for readers who like to read, but they don't know which ones. I mean, there's so many books out there, and they want to be able to streamline them and pick some good titles, and they want to just subscribe and sit back and relax where the books keep coming into their doorstep. And it's also definitely a win-win for the indie community in general, I think.
Yeah.
Really cool.
Yeah. It's not my business, so it's just it's not my business. I'm not a shareholder of this, just a disclaimer. But yeah, it is definitely an awesome thing, and that's why I wanted to bring it up.
Nice.
That's awesome. We will have links to everything on our website.
Yes.
So please check it out. Again, www.shamelesspugspodcast.com.
Yep.
You can find us on Twitter at Plugs Podcast. And you can find me on Twitter now.
Yes. Samantha finally joined Twitter.
Yeah, I follow you.
I follow you too. At Samantha T. Writer, because I'm creative like that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I did the much more creative at J.A. George Writing. So,
that's true. Yes. Well, yeah, no.
Yeah.
And then, where can we find your stuff?
Myself. So I'm on Twitter, and a lot of people do follow me. My handle is Sanyal _Poulomi. That's my handle. I do also have a website which needs to be updated and hasn't been for several years now. Not years, but anyways, it's still there. It's my full name, PoulomiSanyal.com. That's my website. And I'm on Amazon. My books are on Amazon. I have an Amazon page. I have a Goodreads page. I have a LinkedIn page. I have a Facebook page. I have Instagram, and it's all basically my name. So Facebook, Instagram is author Poulomi Sanyal. So that's my handle. And LinkedIn, you can search by my name. And basically, those are the places that I am. And Twitter. My handle on Twitter is also it's the most widely used. Other platforms, probably not so much.
Right.
Yeah.
We will have links to your profile on Twitter and to your website and your Amazon page.
Yeah,
so.
We will have all of that on our website. So thank you so much for coming on our show.
Yes.
It was amazing. Thank you guys for having me. And as usually, this is really lots of fun. I really enjoyed it. Thanks so much.
Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you. Alrighty.
All right. Bye, outlets.
Bye, outlets.
Bye, everyone.